Charlotte's Selectboard meeting on July 24th, reconvening after a fraud risk assessment at 4 and 2 site visits. It's now 7 o'clock. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Public comments? Okay, Select Board updates?
One that I have is setting the tax rate. Mary indicated that she'd be available to do that on July 31st at 6 o'clock, which is next Monday. We have that meeting set for 6:30 with all the committees, so that would dovetail into starting a little bit earlier, setting the tax rate. Also, we could put Bruno Murphy's pay rate on that agenda, so just have those two items, and then the all committee meetings at 6:30. So that's
So it'll be 6 o'clock
6 o'clock, right?
to 8.
Probably, right.
So the other thing, did you just mention the second thing? 6 o'clock tax rate,
Right.
and then at 6:15, review the resume of Bruno for the lister.
Right, the pay rate, right.
We could do that at the same time?
Yep.
Okay, does that work for everybody?
Yeah, the West Village wastewater people meet here from 5:30 till 6:30 or 7 on Mondays.
Can I meet in the back?
Yeah, I can,
Can you skip it?
Oh, you're in two places at once?
doesn't matter. We'll figure it out.
Really? Yeah. All except that sounds like a half
Maybe.
hour.
Any chance they could start a half hour early?
Nah, that's people getting home from work, particularly two of them. Well, 3 of them if you count Christina.
So we'll stick with that then, everybody's good though, 6 o'clock, and you'll figure it out? Okay. I have a couple things. The PEC Electric, it was decided from the Public Service Board that the request from PEC Electric to put the solar panels on the west side of Mount Philo was denied, and that's the final step. So I don't know why we haven't seen the report through channels. Have you seen it yet? I had, somebody sent me one, but,
I got a copy in the mail.
okay. So it's complete?
There's a possibility, I suppose, that they could appeal. Right. We'll wait to see.
Do you know where that appeal goes? Is it
The
right to the
Supreme
Supreme
Court,
Court?
yeah.
Yeah.
Costly.
Yeah.
You got some more?
I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Charlotte Solar. So what we received, if I'm not mistaken, help me Dean, was the judge's findings that go to the environmental court, right?
The hearing officer's proposed
The hearing
decision.
officer.
Right. That goes
So
to the-
it's a 26-page report, I think we got it. The last page was the determination of a penalty to Charlotte Solar of $20,000, and then our legal fees, 19,000 something, to be reimbursed to Charlotte. If I understand it, the 20,000 is reimbursed to the state.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So do we accept that, we, the Select Board? Is there any, it would say that we wouldn't do anything more with what's out there now, with the trees and the growth that's there. I guess I've heard we're pretty lucky to be able to recover our legal costs.
We really should have, because that was, brought to the town, and we agreed on certain plantings, and they did not live up to that, and I think this was a really great thing. I'm sorry that, everybody had to go through all this to do that. There was an awful lot of wasted plantings too. I think there could have been a different start, in my personal opinion after watching it for the last few years. But if they were to pull up the dead ones, I don't know if they have, but when that happens, all of that stuff can just grow and just do its thing, and it is what it is, and it's fine.
So are we good with that settlement then? Do we want to make a motion accepting it? And so then Dean can go forward through our attorney and saying we accept the recommendation from the hearing officer?
Sure. So I guess that'd be a motion to accept the results or the recommendation of what's their title again? The hearing officer?
Hearing officer of the Public Utility Commission.
Hearing officer in the Public Utility Commission with respect to the Vermont, or the Charlotte Solar System on Heinsberg Road.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Do you have some updates?
One, our fire truck price has now been whittled down to just under 600,000.
Oh, wow.
Keeping in mind there are still some other pieces of equipment not provided, but it's going in the right direction. And I think they'll sign a contract shortly by the end of the month. And also, I'm guessing you all got the email with respect to the inquiry with VLCT and my conflict,
Yes.
or the resulting lack thereof.
Yeah, their opinion, there's,
Other than direct financial, what's the term? Reward.
Reward.
Having different people on different committees doesn't cause a conflict, so that,
They think it's inevitable in a small town. You just can't avoid it.
so,
and that, there's 1,000 ways to create conflicts, but by serving on multiple committees, it doesn't implicitly create a conflict.
so that's good. I want to ask you about the pumper, that's $600,000, does that include that like a 75% or 75% payment up front kind of thing? Is that included?
90%.
90%?
That's the bottom line, has gone from, I think their bid was 613, and we've picked away at things we really don't need, so it's now down to like 596 or something, I think is the latest. Like I said, and just keep in mind, there's still some other things to get, but I'm doing my best to make sure it's certainly under our, it'd be nice to come in under price, not overpriced.
Good. Any more updates?
Well, Matt, I wanted to make sure that we start working on the policies for how we move forward with the trails.
Yeah.
That I do support trails.
I did want to bring that up.
Okay.
I'd like to take a crack at a draft policy for looking at building out a process that can be open, transparent, forward-thinking, and I think the goal is to create a policy that would bring as much inclusion and discussion from the select board's purview and I guess the select board's facilitation of the trail development process, so that.
I just feel that there was undue argument over the last month with the trails. I don't feel like we got enough time, enough paperwork, enough preparation. I'm glad I was as prepped as I was, because that wasn't enough. And I just think it just caused undue accusations and arguments that nobody wants to have. We just all want to do the right thing and have enough people know and understand, so.
I think things were rushed a little.
Oh,
I would,
And it opened my eyes a lot when I looked at the report from Du Bois and King.
yeah.
It
me
was
too.
really informative, and I wish it was something I had long
Long
before.
Yeah,
So, and I've been reflecting a lot on the process. I feel like that's where my energy is best spent, with the trails as the liaison to the committee. And, from the two projects that have come before us, I've noticed some similarities, that the Trails Committee puts in hundreds of hours of time over multiple months, but there has been a disconnect in having that information and that process shared not only with the Select Board over those many months, but also with the public, so that it's, by the time it has come to the Select Board, there's been 2 weeks or one meeting to really think about something that is, a longer-term development that I think we'd all like to have more time, including people in town, to
And
think
I
about.
don't want to I don't want to sound mean and debate it right here, but there really are quite a few people who didn't know about the meetings, that for whatever reason, we need to figure that out. And I said, there are ways that you could get the whole broad community to be able to
What I'm
invest in
hoping-
this project.
What I'm hoping to be able to lay out in the policy is to create a different balance in the amount of time that things are spent in committee and with the amount of time that things are spent at the Select Board level, where we have the opportunity to have those agendas. There's 2 people at this Select Board meeting. We had 50, 60 people at that last Trails meeting. I think we have the ability to bring in community discussion when needed, much more than individual committees do. And so it'd be nice to have a balance with the Trails discussions that's not so much work being done just in the committee.
I think that should extend to all grant applications. This is not the first time that someone has showed up and said, oh my gosh, if we don't sign this by Tuesday, we can't get all this free money. I don't think it's appropriate. It doesn't allow us to do our job, to look at it, and I would like to pick a time that we tell everybody, like 30 or 45 days before a grant application is due to be considered, if it needs the Select Board signature. 45 days would let you have one meeting and then a follow-up meeting. 30 days timing could possibly be that you would only have one meeting. So I think that we owe it to the people to discuss it, and let someone come back with questions at a follow-up meeting before we approve a grant, because there's times that we've approved grants and the fine print is raised its ugly head years following that, well, we didn't read that part. So I think when you come up with your policy, I
Yeah.
would like some language where that extends to all grants with respect to application time.
Okay, sounds good.
My suggestion in putting it together in the process is kind of come up with a notional time plan, because if one that we just submitted is accepted, we really need the time to address the public. We need time to warn a special town meeting. And so there are several steps which we need to get people involved to get this to the public to vote on. So I think when you put that a timeline, I think it'd be helpful. And then it can be adjusted, depending on what grant it is, for if it's some other committee, but I think that'd be a good thing. I agree. We need more time and we need more input.
I'll have an update for the next meeting.
Good, good. On the one that we just submitted for trails, we hear in the month of September, right?
They said the end of September or October.
And then we'd have to be responsive by the end of the year, calendar year. So it gives us that's how it gives us a timeline.
I thought I heard we would hear in December.
Initially, that's what we
That's
were told,
formalized.
and then later, just,
That's all
I think it
I've
was the
ever
day of
heard
the
is
application.
December. I've only
Yeah.
ever heard or read December.
Yeah, so
I
it's
didn't hear about,
end of September or early October is what they said now, that they should have not a decision, but a proposed decision.
Okay. Anything else for updates? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of July 10th as may be amended?
That sounds like a good one.
I'll make that. And it is seconded?
second.
So this is I've been through it, I didn't see any issues, so if other folks have.
I didn't either.
Good job, Kathy. Everybody ready? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I did have one more update, the town party at
Yeah.
the beach.
Yep.
I got to go, I saw some of you there. Really big success, great food. Bouncy house was top on my son's list.
Oh, yeah.
For next year.
Oh, he went in?
Oh, this year.
Just a little bit, yeah. He got like a 1-minute spot.
Well, we went to the Mozart concert the other night, which was also really lovely. A lot of people there, and kids got to play on the beach, a little bit of beach. It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I was away. I've been going to those. Be another one this Thursday. We're on
Look
the,
at right on time.
we're on the 7:15 time frame.
Did the minutes get approved, or is there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
We approve the minutes.
Oh, no minutes, right, but they were approved.
Andrew Thurber, Catherine Perkins, application for 2 highway access permits on 2848 Greenbush Road. We just had a site visit. Is there a motion to approve this application? There's a change 1 and change 2, and Junior's weighed in as well. So is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve highway access permit 17-4 and highway access permit 17-5 as laid out in the application.
Is that seconded?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
So I'm sorry I wasn't able to go, but I drove by the other day, Andrew, and I'm sure that whatever he wanted to will make good sense.
It was at the site visit, it was a very thorough process, which included the neighbors'
Okay, great.
input and the planning commission's approval. And it's a slight shift in the curb cuts, and one of the curb cuts closer to the stop sign is going to be moved a little further away, will also be one way in, which will be safer also.
Nice.
So it's a really
The
nice
one on the south
plan.
is moved north, which is a little farther away from the crown to the south, so that gives you a little bit more view.
Yep, and less of a steep incline into the driveway.
Did you see the other one north there on Greenbush that we approved, changing that, how nice that looks? I can't think of the name right this second.
So, Junior, we're reviewing the Andrew Thurber, Catherine Perkins, and you said, okay, no comments. Your 250-foot right-of-way, posted at 25 miles per hour, so that's good?
Yes.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye? You're set. Thank you. So the first site visit was at 4221 Greenbush Road. Casey Arnott. Is there a motion to approve that highway access permit?
Make a motion to approve highway access permit 17-08 for 4221 Greenbush Road, as laid out, and to include a stipulation that 3 specified branches be removed to allow for, on a honey locust, on the corner of Common Way, to allow visibility to the south.
I'll second it.
One other comment from Junior, and that is there's some branches overhanging toward the north on the same side of the road that should be, and brush.
The same brush that we had looked at from the other side. Yep.
So you're talking about cutting some limbs on the south side of Common Way?
There's one honey
The
locust.
north side.
On the
Oh, on the north side. Boy, it seemed to me the other day when I pulled out of there that it was almost hard to see. If looking to the south,
Looking to the south?
I thought I,
That's the brush that Lynn
Is that
just
the-
brought
oh,
up.
okay,
and
yeah.
the, black locust branches, right?
That's what she's saying, coming out of co-housing, looking to the south. We're talking looking to the
North.
north.
well, I can see the north, I agree with that, but, I don't know if it's where I stopped there to go north on Greenbush or what, but I remember thinking, wow, doesn't seem like, just look at it, whatever.
Definitely to the
If I had
north.
had an opportunity to go today, I would have looked at it again just for the
I
heck of
agree
it.
with
but-
Junior, I didn't see anything to the south of
Yeah.
Common Way
I think
that
it's
was
the best
really in the
option.
way.
Just the honey locust.
I'm not-
Honey locust to the north, and then there were some brush up by the bigger trees to the north.
The honey locust will be south of the new
It
driveway.
will be south of the new driveway,
north of
but
Common
north
Way.
of Common Way.
Yeah. Sandwiched.
Yep.
Okay, second.
And that's been seconded. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We got time.
Is Christoph here? Are you Christoph? And Fire and Rescue Fire's here. And Nicole's representing, Director of Recreation. So I think the parties are here to start the discussion. Christoph, why don't you just kind of review, if you would, to the board, what your plan is and how it's different from previous years, et cetera?
Yeah, this is the third year that we're organizing this swim race across Lake Champlain. So it starts at Essex, New York, and the swimmers swim across and land at Charlotte Beach. And as mentioned, it's the third year we're organizing this. It's a small event. Last year we had like 35 swimmers, I think. Probably about the same this year. We have 21 or 22 swimmers as of today, and we'll get between 30 and 40 swimmers. And so we're asking permission to use the Charlotte Beach for a few hours. This is on a Saturday morning, August 19th. The swimmers will probably land between 11 o'clock and noon. And then we have a little gathering, and there'll be some food and sort of a few awards. And so we'll probably be done by 1 o'clock. So it'll be between 11 and 1 on Saturday morning.
Thank you. Why don't we have a motion and then we can open up for discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Lake Champlain Open Water Swim LLC application for August, was it 19th, 2017?
One second.
Second. Okay, discussion.
You said you have 21
Today,
signed up today.
Yeah.
You have on here 50. Are you expecting 50?
I maybe 40, be 40 to 50. Probably not even 50, I would say 40.
And then volunteers, you have 20 volunteers. Is that,
Yeah, we're gonna have some kayakers escorting the swimmers, and also some boats escorting the swimmers. But those won't be on the beach, because that just, once it's done, they just go off. And some of the kayakers will land, and then we'll bring them back to the ferry. But the boaters, they won't land, they'll just go off. And they're-
kayakers would
The
come? with us,
kayakers
right?
will land and then probably just take off, and once they're done.
I think I gave everybody a copy of the United States Life Saving Association recommended guidelines for open water swims. And I think there's a number of things, if not the entire policy, should be included with our approval of using the town facilities.
Yeah, it seems to me like there's a lot more discussion. There's a lot of volunteers, fire and rescue. I heard about that last
there's-
time. There's just a lot that we,
There's some things in here that weren't followed, and I think it was, that should be, in particular, being a person who was on the shore watching, the personal safety devices, the little float that tags behind every person, and a safety or fluorescent colored swim cap with their number on it. You couldn't see many of the people. You could see the people with the floats very easily. The others were, visibility was tough. And also, I was concerned last year that it had to be at least 45 minutes after the race was finished before there was a confirmed count that everybody was accounted for. So 45 minutes is a long time to not know if everybody's made it or not. So that would, I think that part of that kind of stuff is addressed in here with a safety plan and a communications system, so everybody knows when they get out of water, they got their number on their swim cap and they're logged in, and you should know shortly after the race is declared finished that everybody's accounted for.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and I met with Dick St. George earlier, and we had the count as soon as the race was done. We didn't communicate to the boats because they were out of the water. But we've talked about it, and that's very easy to do, so that has been addressed, and that's something that we know.
I would like to see a plan beforehand, Christoph, because both times you've run this, we did not get a count within a reasonable amount of time that everyone was accounted for.
Okay.
Were you satisfied with the boats, safety boats that were out there last year?
No, we were short. We strip every town and boat we can get off both sides of the lake, and it pulls all the water assets from Burlington to Addison pretty much off to this one event. And last year, because of the water temperature and the swimmers weren't required to wear any thermal protection, which should be brought up this year, we stripped everything out of Charlotte. We had multiple ambulances going there. We had the hospital ready to declare a mass casualty incident as they were listening to it on the radio if any more swimmers had started coming out of the water because of the temperature. So,
This year it's a month earlier.
and the water temperature in August is 3 degrees warmer than it is in September on average in the lake.
and so how many volunteers does it take? Approximately 20, 30 people?
You're
or
looking at
10?
5 or 6 rescue boats, 2 rescuers on jet skis. You're looking at, we have to hire in a second ambulance that has to be there for this event. Here, 30 to 50 people for volunteers. Have you done?
How does fire and rescue calculate the need? Is it based on the number of swimmers or the distance from shore?
A lot of it's in that plan. We are working with Coast Guard on the safety plan.
So this is like the people that accredit lifeguards, right? And then what's the Coast Guard's guidelines?
Coast Guard's guidelines are the exclusionary zone, and they're going on past practices trying to make this event safer every year.
Have there been any incidents?
Not yet, but when you have an event coming across the lake that's a mile wide and a mile and a half long before it's done,
How long does the event last? From start to the first swimmer in to the last swimmer out?
For the first swimmer, it's an hour, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and then the last one, almost 3 hours. So they spread out over, basically, the last one is in the middle of the lake, pretty much when the first one arrives. So it's a long stretch, and it's been an issue, and so we've increased the number of boats. Last year, the main issue was the water temperature, as Dick mentioned, and that was tough, because all of a sudden, we had a bunch of swimmers that just
Got cold quick.
it got cold, and we had to pull like 6 out of the water within 20 minutes. So that's why we moved the date to August, and we think that should hopefully take care of it. Because I've been swimming in the lake like until the early September, and without a wetsuit. It's been okay. So I hope that will take care of it. And in terms of the lengths of the swimmers, we're putting more kayaks. We also have kayaks helping. Personally, the motorboats are what's helping. If there's an incident, like a swimmer that can't continue.
This is a 3-hour window of operation, or
Yeah, the
4
race
hours?
starts at 9:30 and we expect everybody to be on shore by 12:30, so about 3 hours.
We have a 1 o'clock cutoff, so you're talking 9:30 to 1 o'clock, possibly in the water. You're talking the volunteers setting up the rescue boats, another hour on each side of this, so.
And this is also a great opportunity for practice, right? Where it's not an emergency, but
All we're doing is watching, we're not doing any training, any practicing.
people are in the boats, operating the boats,
They're operating the boats, but it's not,
keeping safe distances from swimmers.
it's not a training exercise, and it really has
real
no
practice.
training
So it's
value.
really volunteer.
Fire and rescue volunteer or other volunteers?
Fire and rescue from departments, also some of the police departments are involved. You'll have fire rescue boats from Charlotte, Shelburne, Ferrisburg, Port Henry, Virgins, and wherever else we can get them.
Do volunteers get their hours credit for training if they need hours?
Again, it's not a training exercise,
So
it's,
they're not getting any,
yeah,
any
and
credit,
they're not getting anything out of it, but,
experience.
yeah.
I stopped asking the Charlotte Fire and Rescue to, or certainly the fire department, not to be at the parade because I felt so bad taking away from their, own time to, because I had the ability to put on the parade, so I hired what you guys did, and I think that's a great way because I'd want you to be there for fun if you wanted to be there. Rescue goes over and
Do I remember correctly that the cost of the fuel was provided last year?
Yeah, that was one change last year, we covered the fuel. And this year we met with Dick and he asked me to cover the cost of 2 attendants for your team, which we.
This year, again, the cost of fuel, the cost of the second ambulance that's gonna be there the day. I'm also asking that my 2 paid chiefs are covered during the day, because last year, as soon as this event went south, we had every member we could get hold of there, and we stripped this town clean, we started to strip Shelburne clean. So if something goes bad, it's a very extensive drain on the resources. So I was asking that the 2 paid assistant chiefs, both rescue and fire, are there.
So you settled on that, and you guys in agreement?
I believe we're in
We
agreement on
talked,
that.
I didn't know about the second ambulance, that wasn't talked about, but we talked about the 2 attendants.
The second ambulance is the one that you have to cover. The first one we have in town.
Oh, I see, okay,
Because
so
I will
yeah,
not
so
strip our
we're on the same
primary-
page
I will not
then.
strip our
That's fine.
primary ambulance for your event.
Okay, so just like last year.
Yeah,
Okay.
but last year our primary ambulance ended up having to come down. Shelburne's primary ambulance had to come down because of the number of swimmers that we were bringing in. FACT was getting ready to send the rig down, so. If things go smoothly, it's great. If they don't, it's a nightmare.
So you're supportive of the plan?
There's still things that need to be agreed on with Christoph and Coast Guard and us, like the water temperature requirements for wetsuits, so we don't have a repeat of last year. I know Christoph says he swims till September in a wetsuit, but last year we had a storm that inverted the lake. The water temperature that people hit was 50 degrees. I know the Olympic Committee, Masters, and most of the others require a wetsuit below 64-degree water temperature for all participants. So, and they actually do not swim when the water temperature is below, I think it's 58, even with wetsuits. And when the water inverted last year over on the New York side, it definitely was that cold. Because besides the 6 we picked up in 20 minutes, how many hit the water and jumped right back out, Christoph?
Another 9.
Another 9. So we had
Yeah, it
15
was-
swimmers right off the bat affected by the cold, and it affected accountability, we were down 2 rescue boats bringing people into shore, so.
So 15 down out of how many to start?
We had like almost 50 lined up, and 9 didn't do it, and then another set got picked up, so I think we ended up with like 35 actually made it to the other side.
So
But I mean, it was particularly cold, the water, I mean, it was.
it sounds like we should approve this subject to an agreement between Christoph and CVFR.
Well,
In-
is the
in-
only outstanding things the
In
temperature
ink with an
requirements?
autograph.
I had to talk with Chief Baruzzi to make sure all the Coast Guard requirements are satisfied also. And also, I want it known that this is not Shalot's event, it's not Shalot Fire's event.
Yeah,
The organizer is responsible for the event and the safety of the participants, not us. Every year I tell the participants, we cannot guarantee their safety.
So part of just the rec portion, just real quick, is we've been doing the event in September, and this year we're doing it in August. But the beach will be, if it's a beautiful 85-degree day, there will probably be 20 to 30 people on the docks or jumping off the floats that we have. So it'll be it could possibly be a busy day at the beach. So I just wanted to make sure that you were just aware of this change and make sure that, because we can't tell them to not use the docks or the floats. And also, if we expect to have a lot of cars there, then we'll have to open the upper parking lot, and I need to work with our beach attendants. So I just wanted to make sure that, I came today just to make sure that was, if there's anything you
Right.
need in there that we handle. But there could be possibly, 50 people in the beach area. So I just wanted to make sure that was taken into account, because in September, we're kind of
Yeah.
just you guys, so.
right, absolutely. Yeah, we haven't had to face that because in the past it was September, so the weather wasn't as nice, which was challenging for us. But the good side about it is that, of course, there was nobody at Charlotte Beach on a Sunday on a cold, 60-degree day. So this will be different, and we were aware of it, but I don't think the event is big enough that it will create a problem, and we'll certainly work around, being able to have people. And like I said, the swimmers that are coming on a slow stream because they're coming over basically every 45 minutes to an hour, and there's 30 of them. So you have a swimmer coming in every 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So it's not like you've got this continuous stream of swimmers coming onto the dock. So I don't think it should be a problem.
So is this a fundraiser?
Yeah, we're helping the Lake Champlain cleanup fund. So there's donations that are being made to that organization that are helping us, and we're supporting their cause.
So in all due respect, it seems like it's a huge amount of volunteer fire and rescue people from several towns that have to take care of those 35 to 50 people. And it seems, it doesn't seem like that's,
Well, I don't think.
I don't know, something feels weird about that. It's not a training exercise.
Well, it doesn't count towards hours, but it's certainly real experience.
I don't think it's necessarily designed to be solely a fundraiser, but also to allow people that like
Yeah.
open water swims the opportunity to compete.
Exactly. I
It's,
think, normally you're not, as a swimmer, you're not allowed to swim across Lake Champlain. It's just to give the opportunity to some people to actually make the swim. The race is unimportant. The donation, if they can, it's really a nice gesture. And it's a small amount of swimmers, but if we had 500 swimmers, I think it would be challenging for Charlotte. And you're right, it's a lot of boats, and I'm totally aware, but that's what's required, and I think it's warranted. I think we need that amount of support from the kayaks and the boats, as we've seen. And when we organize this, like I said, it's only the 3rd year, but we're learning every year what could go wrong, and I don't want to ramp it up until we've covered most of the problems that we've had. So the weather has been challenging, the water temperature has been challenging, and every year I think we've worked out a few things. I think it's worked better. So it's very few swimmers for the amount of setup, and if it doesn't make any sense, we'll stop. But if we can make it work, that everybody's happy with it on all sides, then maybe we can increase the number of swimmers. But until last year was challenging just because of the weather, so we're hoping that this new date and the new setup will make it better.
Well, it's encouraging to me that you've been very flexible with the event, even though this is not a Charlotte event, and you come here and you discuss, you know, the concerns of a specific town, when really this swim could happen anywhere on the lake. I really appreciate that part of
Well,
it.
I appreciate Charlotte, you know, offering the Charlotte Beach because it's just a beautiful spot. It works really well for us.
And
So I really.
for me, I think Open Swims is an incredible model to really show kids what active fitness is about. I used to swim as a kid a lot, and to reach a level of fitness where you can swim a mile takes an incredible amount of health and perseverance. I think it's a real milestone for anyone to be able to do, and it makes people safer if there is a community event that highlights the benefit of being a strong swimmer in Vermont. We have dangerous rivers and swimming holes, and we lose residents every year to drowning.
3 people that have recently drowned.
Recently, who don't know how to swim well enough. So I think having, you know, a showcasing and highlighting a healthy fitness exercise and show people that it's possible to swim across the lake from New York to Vermont is a great thing to highlight. So I really support this event. I do want to make sure that the event supports the rescue services and the costs. But I'm really happy to support the event.
The one thing about the date that just basically hit me when you said the number of people at that beach, that can present some unique challenges for us also. If we have to bring in patients to the ambulance, or what's going to happen down at the beach when I'm calling in for manpower and 3 or 4 ambulances if something goes wrong, or more personnel. Next thing you know, you're going to have our heavy rescue down there and 4 ambulances and 30 people.
Down there.
That's going to be quite a challenge.
Also, I should mention, not that it addresses what Dick is mentioning, but when we organize this event, we ask people to prove that they have done a long swim, at least 2 kilometers. Most of them show me that they've done open swims in other places much longer, because I don't want some young guy who is trying to, show his girlfriend that he's amazing and say, okay, I can do this, and jump in the water, and then, we have to pull them out. So all of them have done at least, a couple of kilometers. Most of them have a lot more. And it doesn't address the temperature issue and all that, but at least we don't get people that are just not fit and not ready to do this. So that just kind of addresses at least some of the safety features and not being drowned in a lot of people that can't do it.
Well, I think we have time if we could have this on the agenda for next week. I could amend the motion to have this approval be conditional to working out that written agreement with, the minimum water temperature and anything else you find out from the Coast Guard you think would be prudent. We could look at that
Do you want to make it,
conditional piece.
rather than having this debate again in a week,
Right.
do you want to leave it in the hands of the agreement between the 2 parties?
I'd rather see it again myself and just have them show us,
So our
what that
next
agreement is.
meeting is July 31st, which is a special meeting.
Right, that's 1 week.
That's 1 week, but we're starting to add stuff to the agenda, which we can do.
But 2 weeks from now, we'll have another regular
The
meeting.
next one,
August 14th.
which is just a couple days before the,
3 weeks.
Do you think you'd have time to do this by
Yeah.
next week?
So,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
Christoph
we already
will-
talked with the Coast Guards, we had a conference call, the 3 parties, and that was mentioned. We didn't put anything in writing, but we can certainly,
The other towns have been alerted to this for,
Christoph has made an
Harrisburg is
effort this year
having
to
their
get hold of
barbecue
them.
that day.
He's gotten better, and he has made an effort to get hold of these communities. Some of them he hasn't gotten through to, but some of the volunteer departments it's hard to get hold of. The ones he hasn't, I'm sure I can alert. They've all been alerted anyways, just because we need as much help as we can on on an event like this. So,
Harrisburg is having their barbecue that night.
is there barbecue?
A
that
chicken
weekend?
barbecue that weekend.
Well, I rolled out Harrisburg then for that weekend.
so who made the motion?
I did.
So you want to withdraw the motion then? or-
No, just make it conditional that we also approve the agreement
Oh,
next
so
week.
we're gonna
It's
agree?
just, as they outlined in here, it's called a water safety plan, and I would,
Yeah,
So we want
So follow
to
this.
vote on this now?
Yeah.
Subject to confirmation?
that the
Oh, then we don't have to
written
go through
plan
the-
is agreed upon, right. Then we
Perfect.
wouldn't have to-
And so this is the plan that they'll follow?
Do you want this to be a reference?
well, there's a reference to water safety plan, what it includes, and I think that's just about everything that we've talked about. Look, that's on page 3. It talks about pre-event swim, emergency action plan, warning, pre-race instructions, water safety plan, start and finish, swim cutoff time. I mean, that's all referenced in this letter, so.
So
Okay,
which would mean the other towns would have to be notified by Christoph. You'd have to call the
I
other,
called and I'll follow up. I emailed Dick recently, but making sure they're all aware of the event.
well, yeah.
Sounds- yeah.
And that they'd be able to commit to helping, right? And that's,
okay,
so
so
I'm
what we've
aware
just
of it.
agreed to is we're going to vote on this now, and subject to a confirmation a week from tonight that there's a plan that the parties agree to, either Dick or Christoph or
A water safety plan.
Yeah.
water safety plan, okay? Okay, so we have a motion. Everybody is prepared to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain, I guess, because I don't have enough information. I want to read the rest of it before I know it
Okay.
all. So, but I like what you said, Matt. It's not that I don't agree with what Matt said, I just have a different way of looking at it right now.
Is the expectation to just be on the agenda next, or on the 31st?
Just
I
a
think-
review of the safety plan.
I think it, oh, you want to review the plan or accept their agreement to the plan?
Yes, yeah,
I mean, I think it can be 5 minutes is what I'm,
me too.
Well, I want to read it,
It could be in the packet.
yes.
so, everybody's good with that? We voted? It passed? Okay. Next item. Thank you, Dick and Christoph. Thank you.
Matt, maybe you could.
I only have 3 weeks to get in shape for that?
We'll just put a rope all the way under the lake and you grab it and we'll just,
Yeah, I'll take the lifeguard buoy.
with a motor.
I know. Jim Donovan, how are you doing today?
Fine. Hope you are well.
So I have to get my book out and make sure I know who all the players are. So this is appointment, regional planning. Is there a motion to approve Jim Donovan as representative to regional, Cheney County Regional Planning?
I'll make the motion.
Sec-
For a term ending June 30th, 2019.
Second?
Okay. So how many years have you done this now? Because this is
It's at least 4, it might be 6, but I was the alternate for about 4 to 6 years before that. I became the primary representative when Regional Planning Commission and the MPO merged, and we had a representative each. Marty was representative of Regional Planning. Jeff was actually the representative to the MPO, and I was the alternate. Jeff resigned, and then Marty and I sort of decided that she'd take over as alternate, and I would be the primary representative. Do you
So you-
remember, is it 4 or 6? Do you remember? Yeah. It's at least 4.
Okay.
4.
So this will be good for 3 years then, right?
I think it's a 2
So
year.
this is 18, 19 for 2 years.
Yeah.
Good. And you enjoy the job?
Actually, yes, I do. I was on the planning commission for a long time. I resigned from that only because I was forced to miss a lot of meetings due to evening commitments that I had for work. And so I enjoy staying involved with the town and at least doing something for the town and for planning in general. A lot of the work is more regionally focused than town focused, but there are things that do come up that matter to the town. So when
Such as?
one of the whole energy planning that's been going on for the last year at the Regional Planning Commission, I thought was going to be very important to the town, so I volunteered to be on that subcommittee so that I could represent Charlotte and our interests. And that's going to be important as we have to update our plans if we want to stay involved in decisions made by the Resource Board in the future. The whole issue of the underground cable that came up and the tax issues. When I saw that on the agenda, I notified the town that that was something that was coming up. So when I see things, oftentimes I'll see them the Wednesday before the meeting, which is only a few days typically before your meeting. And if I see something on the agenda, I'll usually try to email Dean. Do we want to talk about this on Monday before Wednesday's meeting, if possible? Nothing has been urgent enough, I think, that a decision needs to be made immediately that we've had to do that. But at least it's something that if I see something, I'll notify it and then we can start to think about it and talk about it. So there are things that occasionally do come up.
We appreciate your continuing to volunteer, support the town.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
And everybody, any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Your alternate's not here. Are you
I
going to
know, I'm
represent the
not
alternate?
sure where Marty is.
No, I was going to mention she's won award for Lewis Creek Association on the clean water that the work was done on East Thompson's
I
Point
did
Road.
notice that, yeah, although I haven't seen the paper yet.
Okay, well,
Thank you very much. Also periodically, like quarterly or so, I usually set up a meeting with Dean to just come in and see if there's any issues or things that we need to cover. So,
Good, appreciate that.
Thank you.
A lot of Lane's Lane people here tonight. Is anyone else expected, or don't we really know? I don't know. Carrie would say we should wait.
Are we gonna wait for Marty?
Well, or Lane's Lane's at 8. We could start the discussion on Lane's Lane, or we could do Marty in absentia. I think we should do that,
Marty?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to appoint Marty for alternate representative at Chittenden County Region Plan Commission?
Yep, I'll make that motion.
Second?
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Let's make it, since he's not here, let's make it for term ending like 2050.
Second?
Okay, so what are we in? We're in July of 72017. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate your volunteering.
Shanghai comes to mind, but
Can we proceed?
Sure, go ahead.
We can?
Sure.
Good. Lane's Lane, thank you all for coming. Interesting topic, lots of discussions. They continue. Not exactly sure where to start.
What does Lane's Lane want?
What was it?
What do they want?
Well, there's a lot of things to talk about here. We're going to go through it. You're here to hear the discussion, right? Okay, so Civil Engineering Associates did a summary type review of the septic systems. And they all seem to be in working order in lots 201 to lots 2078. Everybody, nobody has any issues with that, right? Did you see the reports?
It just came in last week, so it isn't.
It's, we contracted with Civil Engineering Associates to do a sampling. It came out of our town meeting, you know, what's the status of the septic systems was one of the questions on Lane's Lane. Another question was, can the main mound system of Thompson's Point handle the Lane's Lane septic if we put a force main in? So these are things we've been proceeding with. So the civil engineers, I think they met with most of you, and they came by on a particular date, July 12th, and they went through each of your septic systems, and they all seem to be functioning properly based on the depth of the look-see that they did. So that's good news.
The summary, I'll just read out. because
Sure.
It's not available to everyone. The Lanes Lane wastewater inspection of individual lots 201 through 208 showed no indications of failed wastewater system via non-invasive methods and surface observations. It is noted that all wells observed on these lots do not meet the minimum distance requirements from leach fields set forth in the Vermont Water Supply Rule. This completes our inspection of Lanes Lane at Thompson's Point. Please feel free to contact our office if you have any questions. So, you know, there's basically two halves to their investigation. One, there were no observed failures, which, you know, it was pretty obvious when they happened. And two, these are grandfathered distances that would no longer apply for the distance from a well to the leach field. So it's just,
Could I ask a question? If we don't have a well, do we need to meet the current standards then? And
If we kept the
If
septic
we-
system, we would, yeah.
No,
No?
no, you can keep the standard that you have. You're grandfathered in, so you can keep what you have. But,
But we don't have a well now.
if you.
right,
want-
if you.
If they wanted to drill a
If you
well?
want to drill a well, I don't know if you would be able to drill a well. That would be, but
because where would
There-
the distance be?
right, but
100 feet.
the distance is
From
100
the
feet.
beach.
You should be able to still drill a well, basically, because it's what you have for a piece of property.
Okay.
So you
best
can,
fit.
it's, the best fix would be to drill a well as far away from the
Old
current system, or the old system, and they may ask for more requirements, like casing it or something.
Yeah, casing the top, so many feet or something.
Right.
Did they ever get back with my answers to my questions about the groundwater level
No.
and soils?
Yeah, I mean, it would have required more extensive excavation, which wasn't,
Well, they didn't do any
they
excavation.
didn't do any excavation.
But it said in their proposal, they do a couple of shallow test pits. I had a question that I asked Dean that presented to them, that without knowing the groundwater level with respect to the lake water and soil classification, they could not be failing, but if the groundwater and the lake water are at an identical level, that would mean that your system's not failing because it's one and the same as the lake, so you have a giant pool out there, so.
Wasn't there a part of this that said that they could do a test at the Shallot access?
Well, I wrote that in the staff notes as far as an alternative to doing
Okay,
an excavation on a lot, on a lease lot.
right.
So I find this report is lacking in those two things. This soil classification, which would be evident from your shallow test pit, and the evidence of, or the elevation of the static groundwater level.
I think I read that they can do that, but it wasn't part of what we approved in the budget. I mean, do you want,
Well, their proposal says they're going to dig a couple of shallow test pits.
oh, you have that there?
Right here, the evaluation will consist of checking septic tanks and digging a few small test pits with hand shovels. I'm going to guess that groundwater is not that far down out there. So they offered to do it and didn't do it. Shame on them.
So we want to have them go back and do that?
Yeah.
I would.
Okay?
I think that's a clear indicator of, you know, people ask the necessity of why do you need to put this in? Well, if indeed, the groundwater and the lake are the same, and your effluent is just mixing with the groundwater, then it's going right into the lake.
I have the,
The last page is the one that has the proposal that says digging test pits. Is that the one you're looking for?
actually,
Where's that
First paragraph.
cost proposal?
Well, this is our letter, isn't it?
this is our letter. What they agreed to do, scope of services, site inspection, evaluation of existing on-site systems, inspect and evaluate the condition of existing wastewater system based on field observations. It'll be limited to evaluating existing tanks if covers are accessible and inspecting existing wastewater system and distribution areas. It will not include any excavation or subsurface evaluations.
Okay, so I stand corrected. I was reading our letter and not theirs.
Right.
So they didn't offer to do that. But I think that's a,
I mean, for additional charge, they'd be willing to do that, I'm sure,
So it's something we requested, but it wasn't done.
yeah, that's right.
for the amount of money that we budgeted, I guess. So what's your,
Well, I guess we'll ask them for how much they want to charge us to go out and dig a hole in a town lot and identify the static water level and tell us what kind of soils we got.
so,
But we don't, do we know in this report, did they report the elevation of the septic tanks, or did they just look at them? Is that on this profile here?
I don't, oh, there is a profile. Oh, there is a profile, yep, right here.
Well,
Here's
this isn't the tanks, though.
No, the profile of the lane, right? It's wastewater.
Is the force main.
These are the individual hookup points from the main that they're putting in. This is the main,
Yeah, that's the design.
that's the design of
force main.
of the force main. That's not the,
But it does have the elevations there.
Yep, because there's the,
It's like 108
right,
to 1,
110,
yeah,
1,
well, 112, yeah, 112 maybe.
So if your tank is 5 feet deep, let's see, it's 108.
so those are the depth of the tank, is that the way you read that?
No, those are the
The
depths
post-
of the force main line going, that's proposed to go back to the wastewater facility.
Okay,
And then the short spurs would be the individual hookups to that from people's camps. I think what Fritz is doing is kind of back calculating if those hookups were on their people's property,
Yeah, they.
guessing where their tank, what elevation their tank would be at.
They don't have an ejector pump, so that doesn't really.
I think the highest the lake got to was like 103 something a bunch of years ago, 6, 7 years ago now.
it was 103.
Why don't I just call civil engineering, and talk to them?
Give them a rash.
So the second part of this discussion is the force main. So we met with Thompson Point Wastewater Committee, it's been 2 or 3 weeks now. And it was in that meeting, I think a couple of select board members were there, suggested we put in the force main. And we went out for quotes. The wastewater committee voted at that meeting to authorize $8,500 to put in that force main, and Steve Williams felt that was appropriate price for that. We've since gone out for bids, and in our notes, we've gotten 3 bids. R&J Trucking, $20,800, Parker Excavation, $10,200, and SJW Docks, $8,499. So Steve Williams came in right in the budget that he thought was appropriate. So the thought is that we utilize that money to put in the force main, and then the second piece of that is individual properties hooking up. So our new leases that I think a couple of you have signed that are here now, saying that it is required in accordance with our ordinance to hook up. But our ordinance has not been modified yet. And there's some subject of a voluntary hookup, mandatory hookup. You know, we have some recommendations that we can talk about here to update the ordinance that would reflect what's in your lease. So, and I have some suggested words, find my pile, but what's your thought? I mean, your systems are working. It's always been a long-range plan to hook up to the main system. We thought in this wastewater meeting to put in the force main, that you could then put it in, you could hook up to the force main, either through our ordinance that may require it, or make it voluntary, or have it done in the next, 10 years. It's sort of in the mix here. We haven't settled that yet. We think it to be about, I think the figure is about $10,000 or $11,000 to do the hookup, and then you pay a prorated amount of the $8,500, so that goes back into the wastewater fund. So we believe there might be 1 or 2 residents who say, I just want to hook up and be done with it. We put the force main in, that could be completed. Then the usage is a cost, so money comes back into the town. The property renter, property owner, or building owner doesn't have to worry about septic anymore. And it slowly would achieve our objective of getting Lanes Lane hooked up over the next few years. So actually looking for feedback how we proceed with the ordinance change, because it hasn't been done yet. So why don't you identify yourself and tell us, and I'll look for the ordinance.
Bob Stein and
Yeah.
my wife Kathy Malillo, 117 Lanes Lane.
Okay?
And I first want to thank the select board for having the lake 2.5 feet higher than it was last year. It's been much more enjoyable than last year. We are a new lease, and I guess we had a discussion a few months back, and we talked about putting the force main in, and I think having the force main in is a great idea, because my biggest fear was my septic system would fail, I'd put in a mound system for $30,000, then the force main would go in, then I'd have to connect to it.
Right.
Okay, so I think you have a solution that avoids that, which I think is terrific. That's just kind of meets my objective. I don't think it is necessary for me to have to connect with a non-failing system. Our system got a colonoscopy before we bought it, and so we've got, I don't think I have pictures, but I saw it, and so and it's a modern tank and all of those things, and I'm learning to live with lake water. I'm learning to live with a septic system again. These are all new things for me, but it seems to me that it isn't, if you're interested in fairness, it doesn't seem fair for those of us, and I think there's one other new lease, to connect when our septic systems are passive.
I just have a question. I'm Catherine Malillo. Is there any savings in people doing this in a group? In other words, if we each pay and we do it it costs us $11,000 or whatever,
Right.
$12,000, whatever the total cost. Is there any savings in doing this in bulk, or is it just each one always costs the same amount?
Probably up to you and whoever decided to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
But I
You
mean,
might-
is it because once you get everybody there, is there any bulk savings in that we would talk to each other or not?
You could, I mean, we have a road commissioner here who runs an excavation business. I used to work for one. The biggest cost savings is probably gonna be pretty minimal on a
Okay.
$10,000 scale. You have like, only one moving fee for the equipment
And it-
to get on
Okay.
site. That might be a couple
That's it.
hundred.
And I don't think you're gonna
Okay.
get all 7 landowners to say, oh, wow, I'm gonna save $500 or $1,000. Okay, I'm gonna go do it. Because I think everybody's gonna have a different opinion on that. So Steve Williams is prepared to do it, and he gave us his estimate, which he's very, very fair in his pricing. So I think the price he gave is probably pretty close.
Okay, that's fine.
So I have one other comment, and that is, and this is, some of my neighbors not agree with me, I would be willing to pay a pro rata share of putting the forced main in, because I think of it as insurance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a mechanism for that, but, that's $1,000 per camp, or more or
Right.
less, and I think, to me, it protects me against the $30,000 mound, which actually wrecks your yard along with it. So, again, you're talking about changing an ordinance, so you can...
Well, that's how you put teeth into the lease that you have.
Okay.
And there are 2 sections in the ordinance. And right now it says sewer is not included in the lane's lane. All you gotta do is get rid of the negative, and then the ordinance includes the lane's lane. It's that simple, it really is. But we don't wanna, and then the other part is the timing. And we all have to talk about that and see what is fair for you. Another comment, yes, in the back?
Hi, Dave Garbos, Middle of Lanes Lane. I took issue with the cost estimate provided by Mr. Williams, and I inquired as to what was needed to hook up. And he gave me a couple things. He said that some equipment's already purchased. Do you guys know about this?
Yeah, the boxes were purchased when they did the main system, these
So the boxes,
cement
like
boxes.
concrete boxes, is that's it? So there's some additional concrete boxes around?
Yes,
Right, and the pumps, were those purchased as well? I think there was a standard pump.
I think standard pump, yes, but I don't think they were purchased.
No, because the original ones have all, they're replacing them frequently throughout Thompson's Point. I mean, there is no,
So the pumps can be purchased individually by the homeowner.
Yeah, I think
right?
the-
Yeah. So then there was a valve box and another box for wires. Came out to me at about $3,000. So I don't know what he's on about. And Junior, I'd like your opinion about how much it would cost to do forced main. It seems to me you're digging a trench. I'm watching some dude dig trench after trench up on Thompson Point Road, and it ain't $8,500, each time he's walking down that road. Have you guys been watching this? The hop thing there, that's moving along. Anyways, I'd like another estimate if it's $8,500 just to dig a
We
trench
do
and
have
throw
3
some pipe in it.
we do have 3 estimates.
Where did these 3 estimates come from?
How much did you do it for, Junior?
Parker excavation.
Well, I know that, but
Chris Galpo, Civil Engineering.
did they post it so our other excavator friends knew about this?
He requested these 3. He works with, not works with, but these are the ones that he thought would be the most appropriate and that responded. He did ask a wider circle, but these are the 3 that responded.
How did he ask that wider circle?
Sorry?
How did he ask that wider
I think he
circle?
contacted them and said, I'm asking for.
Let's
a
have one
quote.
person talking at a time, hard to hear, guys. Go ahead.
He asked them for a quote, and if they responded, or if they didn't respond, then that was, their indication that they weren't interested.
I'm sorry, I lost you guys, but yeah, I'm all in favor of getting that forced main in place. I mean, why not? Backup system. I see no reason not to do that. And And I think the costs are scary to people, and if the costs were more realistic, then I think that, you know, in terms of what you actually need to hook on and tell us, you know, the specific equipment, which is a list of 5 things, and then just leave it to the homeowners to hook on. I think everybody will do it when they see the cost, the real costs.
Junior, were you asked? Did you
Again?
bid? Were you asked to bid?
I didn't want to bid on it. I have enough without getting into the, doing all of the, I don't want to act like just because I'm the road commissioner, the hog that, takes everything. So I usually don't even bid on those. I have enough with just the regular town work, and I do some other private small stuff. But no, I did not bid on it.
But I think your point is well taken. I mean, the homeowners can, as long as they do it in accordance with the specifications, and probably have our civil engineering associates who monitor the activities there, just inspect it and build it to their standards. I think if you can do it for less.
Yeah, well, in case, I just assume get another bid or 2 on digging a trench and throwing some pipe in it.
Well, the cost of a force main that I priced out a couple of years ago when we were talking about getting school effluent over to Burns property was $7 a foot. That was 2 years ago, and this is 1,100 feet of pipe. So 2 years ago, the going rate was $7,000, and it also includes, if you're gonna hook this up to the system, then there has to be a pressure test done on the pipe. So
That's what's included in the
I
8,500.
think they charge a pressure test whenever somebody digs up something, it's $500. Did I get that right, Dean? They charge, the sewer operator charges a fee every time to do a pressure test.
Right, if it's triggered by winter construction or something like that.
So adding a pipe to it would trigger a pressure test. So you're talking 2 years ago, the price is $7,500 plus a $500 fee for a pressure test. So that leaves about $500 on the table.
Well, yeah, okay, well, if that's a good bid, then that's a good bid, if you think. Well, one of the things I'd like to see is just get her done, is getting that force main in place.
I agree with that. We've been talking this thing to death.
So let me take,
Just fucking do it.
seems to be some support for the force main. So there are a couple of issues. So fellow select board members here, you have Town of Charlotte amended and restated Thompson's Point wastewater disposal system ordinance in front of us. So I'm proposing 2 changes. And the first change is section 302. You can find that if you have it up there, Dean.
Actually, I have to go.
302 just says the Thompson's Point sewer service area has been established, and as I said a couple minutes ago, at this time, it does not include lane lots 201 through 8. All you do is take out the negative, and that's the only change you have to make to that. Delete not, and at this time, and then it's then part of the ordinance. If you guys are on it, page 302. The last sentence there, the service area does not include. So I'm going to make 2 suggestions. First one is to take out the not, and at this time. And this next one is a little more interesting, this one. So now turn to paragraph 704.
Wayne, can I ask a question before you
Yes.
answer that one? So my name's John Kerr, and I live at 131 Lanes Lane, once in a while. It seems to me that if you make that amendment to that ordinance, all of a sudden we're bound to connect to nothing that's there currently. So if you're gonna amend it, I think you need to amend it and give us 15 years or some
Right.
period of time to connect to this thing, because, it just seems unreasonable to me to, all of a sudden I leave this meeting and I'm bound to hook up to this, and I don't have anything to hook up to.
I agree.
So,
I think what we're going to suggest is an amendment to your lease. Let's get the ordinance squared away, and then amend the lease that says since your lease is, whatever it is, 4 years old, and you got 10 years from, so by the 15th year, you've got it installed. So to my mind is amend the lease for the timing of which you hook up. And then the ordinance is clean for everybody, and each lease is a little different because of the renewal times.
I understand.
That's a suggestion.
So,
I was just wondering about the last here.
Go ahead.
okay, but you're always allowed to connect.
You can go anytime in, let's say, a 10-year time or sooner, of course.
Sooner,
Of
okay,
course.
okay.
We want people to hook up right away. It protects what we consider any potential failures. It starts bringing money back into, you know, the payment you'll make for the use of the system, and it's a, you know, financially, it's positive for us, and it's insurance for you.
It's a backup for all of us. so
Yes.
You don't have to put them on the system. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, yes.
It just sounds weird when you read the rest of the
You may
sentence.
fit a well in if you don't have your septic system.
Okay, you're back.
Well, that's what I think, so we put a well in.
Yeah, I'm still on 302.
We're on 302 still?
Yeah, because you says, because you said this sewer service area does include those lots located on Lanes Lane, so-called, which are designated as lots to the 201 through 208. And then it says, but does include.
Those are further down, so they're already
They're
included.
already connected.
You
Right,
don't need the but.
right, but you just
Oh.
have to,
Oh,
or you can strike, or you can, or you can, what you can do is just change it, 201 through 208 and put a period.
okay. Do we need to,
Oh,
do you
wait.
need to cover the
Do you
10 and
think that
11?
works out?
Well, I have a
ahead.
subsequent issue, but yeah, I think that works.
And does, put a but to an end, is that what you said?
Yeah, well, do the, as lots 201 through
To,
211. And then,
Well-
and then
where's 209? That's the one that's missing.
209
Okay.
is the town,
Oh, right, good.
so,
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 but it's excluded in this language. I just want to make sure it stays excluded.
oh, right.
So we could just add except 209
Well, then you'd
Which
say,
doesn't have a
then you
right to
say
septic.
201 through 208
and
and
210 and 211.
210 and 211.
Yep.
Okay, question. If you just struck that whole sentence, wouldn't you be included by the language above?
The only thing is the reference to the plan by McIntosh, which doesn't show Lanes Lane.
Okay, thank you.
So my subsequent question is, I think we do need is it Mr. Kern? Kerr. To Mr. Kerr's point, a following sentence, because if we just immediately include Lanes Lane lots in the service area, they may instantly need to be paying the annual fees, even though they're not using it yet. So I'm thinking a sentence after that says something like, I think what we've talked about is we wanted anytime a new lease is signed to have it mandatorily hook up
Within a time frame.
within a time frame. So something like lots 201 through 208 shall be included in the sewer service area once they voluntarily hook up to the force main or mandatorily when a new lease is signed in
Or
some time.
upon system
So
failure.
like that, Lanes Lane, in one sense, the town is saying Lanes Lane is in the area, but they're not technically subject to the rules of the septic ordinance until they actually hook up, is what the second sentence would be providing. And that
But
would
if
be
you go
on the.
back to the lease, though, this says it is included. If you leave it the way we just said, and leave out the mandatory or no sooner than, if we get into it, there's a sample lease here, which we haven't gotten to yet, which is, to me, the time,
My point is to like the Lesperances, or to
Yeah.
someone who has a lease that's gonna be 10 years and they don't wanna hook up.
Yeah.
I think we should have a sentence at the end of section 302 that explicitly states that just because we're increasing the size of the area doesn't mean that the
Sewer
ordinance
fees
is
are not
forcing them.
applicable until it's hooked up.
It's what?
Until hookup, that would do it
Yeah.
too.
So what do you,
That's
give me those
my
words
concern,
then?
is that,
Sewer fees are not applicable until the lots are hooked up.
So you're adding fees into this thing.
What are the fees, just as a question?
it's a rate that's
nine-
calculated every year based on the cost.
That portion currently is $9.50.
$9.50 a year.
And it's 55
Are not,
for 5.5 cents.
what would you say, not required,
Applicable
are not applicable?
No, yeah, that's what I was curious.
Until
until the lot's hooked up.
the lot's hooked up to the system. That'd cover my concern about increasing the
Lane to
jurisdiction.
lane. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
because other lots do pay, even though they're not hooked up, they
Right.
pay.
good point. Okay. So that's that paragraph. And there's another interesting one. So,
So I just have one more comment on
Yeah.
that particular discussion. So, you know, you do this and you sign off, and now you've created a disincentive for anyone that owns a property there to sell that property to somebody else without hooking it up, right? Because who in their right mind is gonna come in and buy a property in this day and age, this economy, and, you know, have that as a condition now to take that property over? You know, the people that are buying homes down there, Bob may be the exception, but the people that are buying homes down there, you know, I think they would look twice. They would say, I think I'll go somewhere else. So you've done a, you know, a disincentive to all of us, you know, by doing this like this. Just doesn't seem fair, you know, that's where I'm camped. It doesn't seem fair. I'm all for protecting the lake, and if I found an ounce of water on my property that was coming from my septic system, force main there or not, I'd do something about it. But that's just me. But it just seems to me, it just isn't sitting right with me that, you know, all of a sudden.
so what you're saying is a liability for when it changes. So I'm not sure what the camps are worth, but if I throw out a $250,000 figure, and then when that person, when you sold, a $10,000 charge would be required in the new lease for the new owner within a period of time. I mean, that's what percentage of, 10,000 of 250? I mean, that's a couple of percentage points. It's not that significant, is it?
No, but look at it from my perspective. I bought that property for $399,000.
Okay, 400,000.
I couldn't sell it today for that. I'd sell it probably for half, maybe
Okay.
$250.
Okay.
That's about what the going rate is. So I'm already in the hole a ton.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining about that. It's just the risk you take when you buy real estate. How many times have you increased the leases on us over the last 10 years? It's at least 3 times. So, you know, I'm paying out, right? I'm almost paying half the amount of taxes. I call taxes the lease and the property value tax that I'm paying on my property in Shelburne. It doesn't seem to be right to me, but again, I want the place, I want to stay there. So you can't just be throwing these numbers around, I guess is my point, without some consideration of the people that are there. And, you know, I think you need to push the shopping cart down that road and talk to every single one of them and make sure that they understand what's happening, you know. I only see 3 or 4 of us here, there's 8 of us involved, so.
We have been informed by letter, which I think you've all received, of plans and discussions and these meetings, right, Dean? I went to everybody a couple weeks ago.
I didn't see the report until I got here tonight.
Oh, this
from
has
the
just been
civil
done.
Engineering guys, you
Yeah.
know, and nobody talked to me, nobody came to our property. I'm sure we weren't there, that's why. But, you know, we unfortunately have to work, you know, we can't just hang out all day. That's another liability we have, so.
With respect to your lease and your tax issue, I think, I mean, we left, what, was it a 5% reduction we figured into the
Coming up.
coming up?
Oh, and the taxes because of the consolidation with the school.
Because they redid, no, they redid Thompson's,
They will
Oh,
be,
that's true, too.
coming up, they will be.
so they will go down,
Your lease.
believe it or not.
I've heard that before.
We're setting the tax rate in a couple of
I'm
ways.
not trying to set the tax rate, but, you know, I also sit in your seats in Shelburne, so I know where you're coming from.
Thank you for your input, it's all part of
And
it.
I'm not trying to be, you know, a snowball thrower sitting out here in the grand audience, but I think that I'm just asking you to please pace this a little bit and make sure that it covers everybody's needs.
Thank you. Let's move over to section 704. So our current ordinance says we have this fund, the wastewater fund, says in 703 shall not exceed $150,000. Commissioners shall annually review the amount, ensure it's adequate to cover replacements and upgrades. 704 says, except, let me see, shall be maintained, is adequate to cover anticipated replacement or upgrades.
What fund is it?
Yeah, going upwards. It's a fund called the Maintenance and Rehabilitation.
Maintenance and Rehabilitation Fund. Okay. So it's intended for anticipated replacement and upgrade costs.
And let me point out, sorry, in section 1, the sentence says, "Monies deposited into this fund shall only be used for the purpose of major rehabilitation and major maintenance." So, and upgrade, correct.
So now 704 says, except as provided below, repairs, maintain, et cetera, except as provided below, any expenditure of funds shall be approved by voters of the town at a duly warned annual or special town meeting. Now, in our other activities we do in financial decisions, we can make decisions, and correct me if I'm wrong, up to $50,000. So anything over $50,000 goes before the town. And so this is money that's in an account, Maintenance and Rehabilitation Fund. We could change that
705, section A covers this.
to maintain or protect the system.
Protect the public health or safety.
Okay.
Or prevent water pollution.
Okay.
Which a force main is certainly at least protecting the,
Then we're good.
In usual terms of repair, though, I wouldn't consider this a repair.
this would be an upgrade.
Right.
Which is in the language of 704.
701, but not 705.
705 says or prevent water pollution.
Yeah, but that's repairs.
Oh, repairs, okay.
Because the cost of having a special meeting will be about the cost of, get the votes and all that stuff. So it's a little antiquated in its, I think, in,
Well, if they change the rules to your car and you have to go get smog inspected, and all of a sudden you have to pay money to comply with it, that's a repair cost, not an improvement to your car. You could argue this way, just to how you spin it. I think you could argue it either way.
so are we comfortable saying we're protecting the public health or safety or prevent water pollution? I mean, are we comfortable authorizing, if we choose to vote that way, this $8,500 as a loan from the fund to be paid back with the wording that we have?
This is part of the system that wasn't put in. It's not you're repairing it, you're just finishing it.
Right, we're finishing the system that wasn't put in.
It's not an upgrade. This refers to a completed system that was never completed. Like I said, it's how you spin it. I'm comfortable with that language the way it is.
Okay. I like that. So, we have a couple potential motions. One of them is make changes to section 302 of the ordinance. Another potential motion is to approve proceeding with the force main.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the force main to Steve Williams for $8,490, what was it? $99? Was that his bid?
22 cents.
22 cents. Oh, that's gonna do it. 22 cents. Can't do it.
That's standalone. So I'll second.
Okay, so restate the motion again, so you've,
Make a motion to award the contract for the installation of the force main at Lanes Lane to SWJ Docks for $8,499.22. Okay, I don't know, could be.
I would recommend a friendly amendment to say with funds from,
To be paid for with funds from the,
name of that fund, that 70,
yeah,
Maintenance and Rehabilitation Fund.
yes.
Okay, so that's a amendment?
Yep.
Okay. Let's finish the amendment here first. Has that been seconded?
A second.
Okay, discussion, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I don't see where the protection of we're not going to be required to connect comes here.
They haven't amended the ordinance yet.
We're going to amend the ordinance, then I think we need to look at a lease here,
Okay,
which we're going to get to.
okay.
We can
fine,
discuss that,
thank you. Okay.
and we'll take your $1,000 to help your insurance policy too.
Well, I'm just wondering if we amend the lease, if we amend the ordinance, what effect does that have on the existing leases?
Well, that's the point. We need to put in a sentence in the lease, a lease. Where did you put that, Dean? You had something for the year 20,000
It was in the notes.
in your
about-
notes.
Yeah.
Connection deadline of 2029. So is that in the third?
That's because that's, where, see that?
The third,
Okay, because that's when the last lease expires. I would rather say voluntary connect with an ultimate deadline, I would like to say within 10 years of current lease. So the 2029 came from the newest lease that has the longest time before it expires. So, I mean, is 10 years fair? I mean,
10 years from now?
from the date of your current lease.
Why any date?
Why any date?
I thought it was just when a lease changes hands was the idea, so that we didn't
Or
affect any
renewal.
current leaseholders.
There are 2 lots that have changed hands that have the new lease language that requires connection as soon as the ordinance is amended.
Right, but why?
Let me just mandatory then.
What?
If it says in accordance, you have to hook up in accordance with the ordinance. If we amend the ordinance to say it includes lot 201, 208, technically, the new lease owners, there's 2 sets of leases, they'd have to hook up immediately
Because that language was in there, but
in the lease,
but
yes.
for all the other leaseholders.
Yeah.
Why have a date 10 years out? like
Well,
you
there's a
suggested?
third one that's about to sell probably in a few weeks, I don't know.
But we have that we've already committed to every new lease that's written
Right.
has to hook up. So
Right, but I was just trying to make it, since we have data saying the current septic systems are working, I was trying to be fair to the leaseholders to give them some time. We
Isn't
don't
the-
have a failed system.
Well, isn't the fairness to have it open-ended? Like they aren't required to hook on unless A, there's a failure and then the state's best fit is to hook up? Like why force people on who are staying there?
Because our original ordinance says the intent is for everybody to be on.
Which open-ended will allow once every lease comes up. You know, every lease has its own natural expiration.
Right, but do you want to do it?
There's no
by-
100-year leases here.
Do you want to do it by the end of the lease, or do you want to leave it
Or
open-ended
sale.
so that, or even sale, or do you want to leave it open-ended that it's a choice of the leaseholder whether it changes hands or not, based on the system failure. The
Right.
existing system failure.
That's, I think, the discussion point, is do we have it be naturally open-ended, or are we making an ultimatum as a town? My personal take is having it, anyone who's new coming into this should have the expectation that they're gonna hook up like every other camp on Thompson's Point. That's the town's policy. But anyone existing who hasn't had to as part of their lease, I don't think the town should force them to, even if they renew their lease.
So if you want to buffer the effect, as you were saying, you would say within 5 years of the change of the lease.
I mean,
So that means if someone's lease who's up, their lease is up whenever they sell it.
Well, or it's 20 years, so say
Or
they
it's
don't
20
sell
years.
it. Should they
So-
should they be forced to, if they have
Whenever
17
there's,
years?
if you want to mitigate the effect of that, some you would put a time limit whenever the lease changes hands.
For the new buyer.
New buyer or the existing
Yes.
person. Whenever your lease is up, you got to within 5 years of
To
that
comply
time.
with the new ordinance.
Comply with it.
but the 115 camps,
Right.
the 115 camps on Thompson's Point,
I would, unless, you know, I mean, that's the agreement they signed with the town, is to 2035. You know, I would honor that agreement unless there was some health and safety reason not to, personally.
but that was not the precedent in the 115 camps that were required to hook up to the Thompson Point wastewater system.
Right, these are outliers. You know, they are not, Lane's Lane, we're bringing them into the fold, which I think is a good thing, but doing it forcefully, I think, is a
They
little
were originally
heavy-handed.
part of the system design. What I don't know is why they were excluded, other than because I think at the time there were certain people with influence that lived on Lane's Lane that got it left off. I think, if I got
Because
history
they were
right.
They were year-round homes.
Yes, and the ordinance said once they cease being year-round homes when they're sold and the lease changes hands.
So, you know, to be consistent, for me,
Yeah, I'm not,
Sorry.
yeah, that's what I was saying, is the reason these are left off is fuzzy. Because the system was designed to encompass them. Everybody had to hook on except for these, and I've never heard a good why these were left off, other than 3 of the houses were year-round, so they couldn't hook up. But that leaves the others, why they left the whole street off, I don't know.
and my take is just a general take on things that are grandfathered in general, that you don't take the rug out from a grandfathering, you allow time to have, you know, a rollover happen naturally, but not.
So with your example, with, forget your name, Mr. Stein, they have a lease that's 1 year old, so they're good until 19 years from now. Stan Lane is going to sell in 2 weeks, and hopefully, but if you put that in, wouldn't have to do anything until 20 years from when he signs, is what you're saying?
No, well, if it's a new owner with a new lease, they would
Oh,
have
then
to do
okay,
it.
that's my point.
Yeah.
The new owner, so he's gonna sign his in 2 weeks, they have to hook up, but this lease that's 1 year old, they don't have to hook up for 19 more years.
That's just the timing of grandfathering, you know, it's,
Well,
there's.
I would say that maybe because there's already apparently evidence of a deal that is in the works, for us to change the ordinance in the middle of somebody's deal is a little
So we,
fishy.
what, I don't even know what the word, if there's a word for that, we forward date the
But if you-
ordinance to come into effect in
A compromise
6
would
weeks?
be some period of time, 10 years, 5 years, 10 years. To me, that's a compromise. And then,
Well, another compromise would just be to wait until that deal happens before we make the amendment to the ordinance. If it's
but there
3
could be
weeks
another
from
one
now.
2 weeks after that. I mean, we'll never get there.
Is there? Is someone, there's only 7 lots here.
Well, they've been, three of them have changed in the last,
In the
four
last
of them.
year.
4 of them have changed.
In a
Chris
year.
Davis, these 2 families, and Stan Lane.
But 2 of them are,
I know. Oh, he's on it because he's 210. You're right. You're right.
but we do have it in the in 2 of the leases already,
Yeah,
that once the ordinance changes,
they have to
they are
hook
hooking
up.
on, right. So those were backdated to not be grandfathered.
But these these folks here is one of them.
Luck, it was luck.
So that means if we change the ordinance tonight, they're required to hook up.
That doesn't seem fair to me.
There you go. But 10 years you'd like.
20 would be better. 20 covers me fine. I'm 68 years old, I'm good.
But, you know, just another point, so, you know, instead of getting into all these semantics of each and every lease, why don't you offer us some incentive to hook up? Why don't you help us hook up? You know, like cap our lease for some period of time, or whatever it may be. We can work out the details, but give us some incentive to hook up, instead of, you know, it's just, this is a one-way street, right? I mean, you want more for the lease, you know.
We tried to do that by borrowing money at our annual town meeting. We want to borrow $85,000 from a fund that we don't use, affordable housing. And we didn't get approval to do that. That way, we were going to give the property owners, you know, a period of time, 5 or 10 years, to pay it back. So make everybody hook up. We'd borrow the money from the town budget that hadn't been, town fund that hadn't been utilized, and then give you folks up to 10 years to pay back. And incentive is, the sooner you pay it, the less interest to the town. But that didn't pass.
And I don't know if we could, without town input, start passing out town
I know,
assets as an incentive.
your question really has us impose restrictions on future taxation issues, which we really have no authority to do. You know, if we gave you an incentive.
And I'm not sure there's any implicit benefit to the town to have people hook up. If there was a benefit to the town to have people hook up, that'd be one thing, but.
Sure there is, because you get, well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you start now getting the user fees from all of those 8 properties, not that that's a huge difference, but now you get some more money to your till, so you can keep the thing running.
The idea of the user fees is to have it be, you know, just a cost.
Yeah, the
coverage,
wastewater system
not
does
money
not
making.
contribute to the fund of the town. It's its own little thing, and it pays for its own expenses.
Sure.
So, Mr. Krasnow's point about grandfathering, if it applied to those, quote, new leases as well, and maybe the current to-be sale, and I think what you were suggesting was new leases would be required within 5 years, for example, you know, to give the new buyer some cushion.
5 or 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, some period of time that, I mean, it's obviously a self-serving comment, but I mean, if you're talking about grandfathering, there's 2 of us that have new leases that, you know, Mr. Morrison's point is if you don't make any changes, we'll be required to connect up, and we have fully functioning septic systems. So that seems unfair on its face, but, I mean, well, okay.
Where is that language suggested to be added?
It's not, it's in our lease now.
No, that part I know, the 10 years. You know, the idea
I think
of-
I'd have to find a line. We have leases in our packet.
Would that be
Tom.
the lease or to the ordinance?
Oh, I thought it would be to the ordinance.
I
You
thought it would
think
be
it's
to the lease.
Ah,
I thought it'd be to the lease.
so we would amend the lease and it
Yeah,
would have
for-
We
to
would
be
amend 2
agreeable.
or 3 individual leases in this case.
Got it. Sorry, yeah. That-
And then the ordinance is clean.
So you're basically gonna put.
And what would we do,
Where are we?
and that would be the same for any
Go back here.
other leases that may or may not be drawn up within that time period?
It just talks about the ordinance.
Ordinance is amended and could,
So if
We
2
amend-
years from now another camp wanted to, it would be 8 years if it was a 10-year thing, written into
Well,
their lease.
If it went for sale, if we make an exception with these 3 leases to give them time to hook up, then 2 years from now, if somebody wants to sell, then it would be effective immediately.
But, you know, to Mr. Kerr's point, that everyone, I think everyone who could hook up to the force main should have the same amount of time to be grandfathered, whether they decide to sell
agree
or
with
not
that.
in that
So that
time
would,
period.
that would entitle changing the ordinance language and not the
The individual leases.
the individual. So the one we talked about, not applicable until you're hooked up.
Somewhere in section 3.0,
So now you're looking at going back to
302.
302 and say,
Or, so that last sentence, lots 201 through 208 shall be included in the sewer service area once they voluntarily hook up to the force main, or mandatorily after 10 years from some date today.
After the expiration of the current lease, or at the expiration of the current lease, or 10 years for new leases?
or no later than,
Yeah.
or no later
Right.
than
I think
10
that's
years.
what you're trying to
Yes, that
say.
is what I'm
So
trying to say.
Your current lease is good, and somebody that buys gets X years, and if it's 10, it's 10.
Right, within 10 years,
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
Say it again.
That's a tough question. Say it again.
208 shall be included in the
Sewer service area, Thompson's Point sewer service area, I guess it's in quotes.
Point service area.
Once they voluntarily hook up to the force main,
why do you say with the
Or-
word voluntary? Just say,
well, so that
Hook up.
their rights are exercised.
hook up no later than 10 years from the date of the lease.
Well, there were two time frames until the natural expiration of the lease. You know, they can voluntarily hook up any time.
Right.
Or,
Or the termination of a lease.
Within 10
Or
years of the
mandatory-
termination
yeah.
and of a new lease.
or mandatorily, at the termination of an existing lease, or 10 years from today, whichever comes first.
It's 10 years from the date of the signing of the lease.
Or Matt is saying 10 years, period, I think.
Effective today?
No, for new leases,
Oh,
right?
so at the end of the natural expiration of existing
Of
leases.
existing lease.
Or within 10 years of new leases. I think that's it.
I think you got it.
And to your point, Mr. Tenney, before you were talking about, and required if you're failed, you've already got language that if you have a failed system, you either have to leave in 30 days or do something.
The state does.
Well, it's right in the lease, it's my lease, so you're gonna have to connect, that's why the force main is an insurance policy for that.
Okay. We have, this is going to be this is a separate motion, but we solved two problems. So the motion in the air is to contract
Oh, sorry.
with Williams, S.J. Williams Docks from a fund. So that, you want to read us that motion?
Yep, to award the contract for the installation of the force main on Lanes Lane to SW Docks for an amount of $8,499.
SWJ.
SJW.
SJ Docks. Do you want Steve Williams? in there?
With,
It's just SJ,
That is Steve Williams.
whatever dock company.
James?
do you have the other part, with funding? With funding?
That was the friendly, you made the friendly amendment with funds from the Maintenance and Rehabilitation Fund.
Yes,
And I seconded.
yes. Okay, any further comments on that? Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that's good.
Gotta
Now we
force
need a
me.
motion for the ordinance.
Could I have a friendly suggestion? that
Yes.
You propose this language, or offer this language to the town attorney and ask them to provide language that implements what
For the ordinance?
for the ordinance.
Well, so why don't we make the motion and to be
Subject to.
subject to legal review.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That sounds good, and I would just substitute, instead of hook up, to connect. I mean, that's sort of.
Okay? So since you,
Now, this is, I'm trying to get this straight. We're doing, it's 10 years. Now, 10 years for new leases. So you're trying to, I'm just trying to figure out if a new lease is signed, how long does that person have?
If it's signed within 10 years, they have to the natural expiration.
If somebody signs one, if this gets approved.
Yeah,
And somebody signs a new lease tomorrow,
they have 20 years.
oh, I thought it was 10 years. 10 years.
We did 10 years.
Oh, okay, a new lease is
Okay.
10 years.
10 years.
So that's halfway through their lease.
Right.
Right.
And somebody that has a lease that still has 19 years on it,
Any remainder.
they have the remainder of that time.
Even the new leases that have been signed within the past 2 years, or past year?
Anything before this date.
Anything before the date of the approval of this
Ordinance.
Do we-
What
amendment
about
to
the new
the,
one coming, that,
So
the
they
new
have,
one
they have
that's
10
already
years.
in?
This compromises, it would be 10 years.
So in Stan Lane's case, they have 10 years.
I,
In this case, they have 19 years.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Stanley could have 20 if this isn't, you're gonna, if he
Don't
sells
fortunate.
before this is finalized.
The rate's
Right.
going
Just don't
down.
find
which is,
I think,
Call the seller and say close
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we could make-
Save
well-
you a bunch of money.
we can just approve this ordinance to go into effect in a month.
but my point on all this, do we really want to wait 20 years? I think the sooner people hook up, the
Well-
better. That's why generally 10 years. I mean, taking out to 19 years or 20,029, it's kind of extreme, isn't it?
I don't think so. If they have septic systems at work, I mean.
They're gonna work for
at-
20 years?
At my house, the septic
Well, if they
system's gonna
fail,
work
then we
for
have
20 years.
If they
It's the same as
fail,
any other home. If they fail, they have to, you know, so I think we're covered
I
from
don't think it's fair with
a health
this.
policy.
Right now, with all this rain, I get slow drains at times, and then it recovers, and we'll get some good days. And so, I mean, I personally was gonna hook onto it, even if the sale doesn't go through. But-
you're going to hook up to the force main.
Yeah, but now if you're gonna give me 10 years, that I don't have to, are you gonna allow me to repair a separated pipe or a?
That's the state, yeah, they may. I don't
If
know.
you have a separated pipe, does he have the right to repair it, or does he have to hook up to the force main?
I think that's the state's jurisdiction.
What does he
Oh,
have to meet? There's
what-
something in the lease that says he needs to get approval from the select board to make any repairs.
To an existing septic system.
and depending on where it is, if it's before the septic tank, it's repairable. It really has nothing to do with the system itself.
The pipe is probably repairable. Yeah. Right, yeah.
So what do we have for words?
You want to go back to section 302 that you were talking about?
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
please.
Lots 201 through 208 shall be included in the Thompson's Point sewer service area once voluntarily hooked up to the force main or mandatorily at the termination of an existing lease or 10 years of a new lease.
And we'll have that subject to legal review.
Subject to legal review.
We didn't, no, in that, it doesn't say anything about renewal.
Well, termination of existing lease implies renewal, but we could have it in there.
I think we were talking about expiration.
Expiration. Was it expiration of the lease?
So if we do the 850 item,
It said once, they shall
before
be
we vote on
included in
this
the
one, does that
Thompson
save us
Point
anything?
sewer Service area once voluntarily hooked up to the force main or mandatorily at the termination of an existing lease or within 10 years of a new lease.
Well,
They're not ready,
Termination or
they're not ready.
expiration.
850 disappears.
I just,
That's not gonna happen. That's
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot on the fly.
One point you used hook up again. So
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
connection.
not
Connection.
hook up, Connection. Okay, got it.
Okay, I was talking. Could you repeat the motion?
Lots 201 through 208 shall be included in the Thompson's Point Sewer Service Area once voluntarily connection to the force main or mandatorily at the termination or expiration of an existing lease or within 10 years of a new lease.
And connected rather than connection.
I got connection,
Connected,
connected,
yeah.
or mandatorily.
And Frank had another sentence that we forgot about.
Subject to the legal review.
The other sentence you had, Frank, I don't know if you want to still put in there. Wastewater fees are not applicable until hooked up to the system.
That's what Fritz was doing.
It says the same there. In the service area, only after they're connected, then they're not subject to sewer fees.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
so on the end of what Matt said, when they're connected, fees shall be applied once connected. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Where do you
it's,
want that?
A new sentence at the very end.
Okay. And what's the sentence? What's the sentence you want to read?
Wastewater fees are applicable, are applicable,
Or
That's
not?
a lot is hooked up.
Applicable
That's what, something
are
like.
not applicable until connection is
Connected.
made.
Until connection is made. Okay.
I think the or could be like, the lawyer can do it. 1, this condition, 2, this condition, 3, it'll read better.
Yeah,
Right,
but-
so you want to make a motion with the following conditions, subject to approval by legal review. Then you get into the lots 102, 108, or 101 to 108.
201, yeah.
Yeah, it's kidding. Shall be in the Thompson's Point Sewer Service Area, once voluntarily connected to the force main, and then do you want to do a point mandatorily at the termination or expiration of existing lease, and then another point within 10 years of a new lease, and then wastewater fees are not applicable
It's
until.
3 conditions.
Yeah.
Three
Three-
conditions.
So the once
1,
could be
2,
a
or 3.
colon, and then 1 would be voluntarily connected, 2 would be mandatorily, and 3 would be.
Okay.
Or terminated.
And then the last, I think, open question is, do we want this to go into effect 6 or 8 weeks from now to honor a deal that's in progress?
Do you care? Stan?
I thought, as far as he goes right now, he's got to hook up on it because he's not here tonight. But, and like I say, if the deal fell apart, I was gonna hook onto it anyway, then maybe auction the place off. I'd rather auction it off, all hooked up and ready to go on the system than to sell it to somebody or auction it out to somebody and have them, have to deal
More
with it.
money into it.
So you don't care?
I don't take care.
He doesn't care. Okay. Everybody, any other,
We'll make
we have a
sure.
motion, it's been seconded? Somebody
No,
seconded
it's
it?
not made or seconded.
Didn't I make a motion?
You made it, yeah.
Okay, you want to make that motion?
Sure.
And you're seconding?
Say it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments regarding this topic?
You've been very, very understanding, and I appreciate it.
Yes, very fair.
Thank you for your
Very fair.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We've been talking about this for,
Yeah.
Long time.
before,
When we were, you know,
all right.
a year and a half ago.
Talking about this for almost 4 years.
That's good.
Please.
Okay. Are you John?
Yes, I am.
Sorry for the wait. Hopefully we entertained you.
I've been late, you have probably been waiting for me, but since I was early, that's how it always works.
Could I have your name, please?
John Hallenstein? It's in the minutes,
Oh, okay.
or the agenda. Is there a document to refer to on this? or-
There is a document in the packet, I believe, is there not? Let's The, yeah,
License agreement.
yeah. Yeah, right. So to give a brief explanation, I can or you can. John is doing a subdivision. He actually did a subdivision and didn't file the Mylar and expired, but he's doing it again to create 2 dwellings in the existing barn on the south side of Spear Street Extension. The wastewater is on the north side, so he'd like a force main under Spear Street, and that requires a license agreement with the town. Junior's looked at it. The force main has to be 4 feet under the surface.
5
of-
feet.
What's that?
5 feet.
5 feet.
4 feet at the edge of the shoulder or some 5 feet over the pavement part.
2 feet below the ditch or something like that?
Actually, the sewer has to be lower than the
Yeah.
utilities are 3 feet, but the sewer is, 5 feet beneath the roadway surface and 4 feet beneath the bottom of roadside ditches within the town's right of way. Boring pits shall be located 25 feet from the center line of the road pavement.
How does the license agreement, does it go through that, or is that, what are we going to approve?
Yeah, the license agreement is what you approve.
Where does it say the 5 feet under?
Number 3 on page 2.
Number 3, page 2. I see, there it is. Is that the only item of significance then?
The rest is protections to the town that,
Yeah, basically I'm taking responsibility for any and everything that would possibly occur under that road because of that force main.
Okay.
This is just my first time seeing a force main going under the road. So I'm just curious, in the second main paragraph on the first page, it's 20 feet wide?
the
Why is it
easement area.
Why is it so, is that in case they run into something, they have alternate path, or? I mean, the main itself is only 8 inch.
Right, but I think it's just to give you an area that you
To
can go
navigate.
under, yeah.
Well, in case in time in the future needs to be repaired, there might be 20-foot wide ditch has to go through there to repair anything if, in case water or anything starts filtrating out.
Or is that just old, I mean, because now we bore everything, it's not, we're not digging up the road, making a trench,
Right.
but maybe
It
it's
will
just
be
old.
it will be horizontally bored.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Could-
you're
Might
not
just be
disturbing
old.
the road surface whatsoever.
Could be narrower.
I'm not suggesting it should be, I was just curious where these numbers, the history of,
Where 20-foot.
Yeah, if that's a standard.
Actually be dug and
got it.
So is there a motion to approve this license agreement?
Did you make it?
Yep.
I'll second. What was, the motion is to,
To approve a license agreement for utilities installed under town highways, John and Lisa Hallenstein, Spear Street. I don't know if there's any number or anything,
Be signed by.
signed by the board. Or, no, I didn't see that. I saw a notary.
Duly authorized agent.
yeah, where is that?
Right here, town of Charlotte.
Notary.
Yeah, this
Oh, yeah.
form is a bit complicated because the property is in trust, so there's a trust signature, and then the town signature is on page 5, about just past halfway
Halfway
through.
down on the right.
And in this case, to authorize the chair to sign this agreement.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
How do we memorialize where this pipe goes? Do we? Did we put a marker? How do we mark the pipe? Do we? Or is that the installer's job?
Beyond the right of way, isn't it?
Actually, I mean, DigSafe would pick it up if it were utility, but if it's a force
Septic
main.
would not be picked up
Right.
by VCAM.
So if somebody went and put in fence posts or road sign, I guess you're not gonna go down 4 feet, 5 feet.
No, normally about 3 feet. We go down to the signpost.
Have to be a pond.
Yeah. Just
All in
curious.
favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Sorry to make you wait, but you got it. The next,
Can I come in tomorrow and do the notary and sign?
Yep.
Tuesday I can come, yeah.
Okay.
I probably won't be until about 9 or 9:30. Is that good?
I'll come in, I can come in at, oh, what time are you gonna be here? I'll be here about 9:45.
Okay.
Okay. The next one, State of Vermont, Mount Philo. This
Make
is,
a motion
go ahead.
to approve the license to install, repair and replace underground utility lines for the Mount Philo State Park and State Park Road. Is that enough?
Second? Oh, to be signed.
You want the,
Yeah, in this case, to be signed by the chair.
Second.
So do we just put utility license in the middle of our trail?
this, this is to get power to the little hut so they can run credit cards.
Yeah, but you hear what he said?
I did. Why is the trail gonna be
Where will there?
on
Is there-
Humphreys Lane? The trail isn't gonna be on Humphreys Lane.
Is one on
Humphreys Road.
the northwest corner of the intersection?
Yeah.
Is that a pole or is that green, is there,
It's a pole there, and they would bore down from that pole, beside the pole.
Pole's already there.
The pole is there, yes.
see what he's got.
We're gonna go under,
They
Looks
go
like it's-
under.
Okay, so they're
Looks
going
like
under.
up-
They're going under Mount, well, it looks like it's 75 feet away from,
Going south parallel to Mount Philo and then crossing on the
yep, that goes north.
Philo Road on the
Or
south
east.
side of Humphreys Road.
Humphreys Road.
I just want to say, the state is going to ask for a change to, they say that they're not allowed to indemnify the town. There's language in state law, so the language is going to change slightly. I just wanted to run that by the town attorney, and he went on vacation this week. So
with this agreement.
that agreement, yeah, they looked at it, there's one provision that they're gonna want to change, which is indemnification of the town.
Well, then they need to change it, and we'll see.
Do we wanna say subject to legal, all right, I mean,
Well, subject to seeing the change, being able to read the change, whatever.
Okay, I could probably print it out tonight, but they're basically striking,
what section you in?
actually, I need to look.
What's
Two?
this right here? This is the north side.
This is where the trail was gonna go, but there's already a pole.
Small risk of damage.
They're gonna cross. This is where I thought the trail would cross and go down the north side of State Park Road. But if there's already a pole
Modify it or
here.
delete it or what?
They will probably do it.
The entire section.
I actually wasn't looking at this properly. I was looking-
This is where the trail would cross. This is going up Mount Philo. This is going down to Ferrisburg. Our trail would go here. But if there's already a pole there, then it's okay. They're gonna come under Mount Philo, under State Park Road, and then go under Mount Philo to get power to there.
Nice.
So it's paragraph 9 that there, Dean says they would delete, or the state would delete. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Who drew this up?
The form has been used by the town attorney, or provided by the town attorney. It's been used for other similar projects.
Well, the state objects to it, though, this particular paragraph.
Right, they say the state is basically prohibited from indemnifying other parties.
That convenient.
You guys good with that, or?
So if they dig a boring hole and somebody drives into it, they don't own it,
It's not the state's fault.
contractor's fault.
That's what we said, the contract.
Underground utility, so I imagine there's probably not much possibility in the future that,
So do we want to note with the expectation that paragraph 9 would be deleted? Okay,
so this is electric, they bury that 3 feet.
4, and then 3 feet out of the ditch.
Okay.
so we have a motion, everybody's good with it? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
No, but it's all utilities or.
Internal Controls Manual. Okay.
So, just in summary, I mean, and to explain the situation, last time, or two meetings ago, you approved the document with an edit to the payroll section regarding exempt employees. And one of the changes was to indicate that listers are exempt. And I think that the change was to say that they don't submit a timesheet, or that's actually the current language is they're not required to submit hours except for vacation, sick, holiday, personal used hours. But they are part-time and therefore they do submit a timesheet. That's how they're paid. So I had wanted to just raise this as an issue. Mary did propose language that is fine.
I have a recommendation to Mary's language. If you go to the back page of that handout, it says, the town administrator, she says, doesn't understand why it has to be complicated. So she's proposing, the town administrator, recreation director, librarian, and all elected officials are exempt employees. Exempt employees submit a timesheet, but are not required to submit hours for vacation, sick, holiday, are required to submit vacation hours, sick day, holidays, okay? So this is, she said, elected listers are the exception as they are paid on hourly, as hourly employers and are required to submit a timesheet. What I'd like to recommend, let's not make it an exception, let's just make it a modification. So I'd like to say, cross out are the exception and say elected listers are paid as hourly employees since they are less than full-time and are required to submit a timesheet in the same matter.
I'd even make it more general and
Go ahead.
maybe have it read, just be a difference between salary and hourly, period. So elected officials who are paid on an hourly basis, and then
Okay,
write it in.
so,
Are required to submit a timesheet in the same manner as non-exempt employees.
okay, so give me your change, so I'm fine with that one. So,
Elected officials,
let me find that.
the beginning of that Mary
Okay,
sentence.
all elected officials
Yep,
are
elected,
exempt employees.
That he wants to change it here. He wants to change elected,
Okay.
instead of listers, say officials,
Okay,
Paid on an hourly basis.
and then cross out are the exception as they are,
Okay.
they, and say are paid as hourly employees and are required to submit a timesheet in the same
Are
manner.
I
required.
think that's great.
And we can even close up any possible disconnect with the first sentence that Mary suggested by saying, as she said, the town administrator, recreation director, librarian, and all elected salaried officials.
No.
No, all elected officials are exempt.
Oh, because there's,
Because they're elected officials.
but the first ones are salaried.
And then the next sentence.
So salaried employees and all elected officials are exempt?
So what are we,
Yes.
the first sheet in red, who's,
Yes,
We're in the back, show you back here?
yeah, but is this the proposed change in the front page?
That was the language I put out there, which it sounds like Matt is kind of moving towards, on the next page from that.
Oh, exempt employees, is that where it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it goes, under exempt employees. Then you turn the
And in the
page.
red on the front page, it says elected officials are all exempt employees.
Yeah.
Yes. So what is the rest of it for?
Mary's sentence is just for the second page highlighted piece? Elected officials who are not salaried? Is it? Or that was a rewrite of the entire
Yeah.
paragraph?
Yep.
So I think we just need that
So if you just
second
do the front
sentence.
page where it says elected officials are exempt employees, you don't need the second page. Is that what I'm?
No, we do because the listers are elected, but they are non-exempt.
They're exempt by
they
law.
are exempt, but they're
Hourly.
hourly, not salary. They're still exempt.
Oh, right, so it's just a separate issue.
Yes.
They're still exempt, but the treasurer would like to see the procedure for the timesheet be different.
So, Mary's comments, as you modified it, go as Fritz is asking under exempt employees, right?
Yeah, and I think we only need that second sentence. We don't need the first sentence, because that's already the first sentence. So the only thing we would do here, under exempt employees, we would strike elected officials who are not salaried, submit a timesheet with hours worked, and we would put back in the sentence we just wrote. Elected officials paid on an hourly basis are required to submit a timesheet in the same manner as non-exempt employees.
Okay.
And that's a procedural request from Mary. It's,
Okay.
has nothing to do with state law.
Right, but did you leave in you have, on Mary, she wrote down the town administrator, recreation director, librarian.
That's already here. All elected officials and employees who are salaried.
Okay,
That's what that sentence is,
gotcha.
speaks to.
No, it's to replace that.
Right, it'd be redundant to put it in because we already have it.
So you're going with that.
Crossing out this
Crossing out
and putting in,
that page. Oh, okay.
Are you defining, she defines what an elected official is. Are you taking that out? She's saying, town administrator, librarian are all elected. You're generalizing that, right?
so the first sentence of that paragraph covers her first sentence already.
Okay,
So you're just going with
it's all elected officials. You don't need to say who they are.
Elected officials are exempt employees.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, it already says that, but here,
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that, but you're going with that deleted.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It's either
You're not
or.
going with
Right.
this.
So explain
Yeah.
which one you're
You're not
going
going
with,
with
because
this.
that's not clear.
right.
So
Well,
you
we're using that one sentence that we just modified. So this will read like this, except that gets struck
Could
and
you read-
insert elected officials paid on an hourly basis are required to submit a timesheet in the same manner as non-exempt employees.
But you're putting that instead
That will
of
go,
that.
right.
Okay.
Could you just read the whole paragraph just to be?
Yeah, I could do it, and you could look over my shoulder. All elected officials and employees who are salaried are exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act. Elected officials and employees who are salaried submit a timesheet only to indicate vacation, sick, holiday, and personal hours used. They are not required to submit hours worked. Elected officials paid on an hourly basis are required to submit a timesheet in the same manner as non-exempt employees. In addition to vacation, sick, holiday, and personal hours used. The library trustees approve the library director's timesheet before submission for payment.
Is that a motion you just made?
Canopy? Okay,
Is it in the form of a motion?
so moved.
Okay, is that seconded?
Sure. I'll second it.
So you have that paragraph? Okay.
Yeah.
You can have
Okay, now I do.
What if?
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
this. Will we revisit this one?
Yes.
Okay, so the internal controls audit is done. Stan, you're here. You're not ready to do our 850 item, right?
No, Ben, still working with his finance.
Still, so that's, we're not going to address tonight.
Only if you can authorize it, when we get a closing date, if it's in between meetings, something like that, but I don't know what your rules are.
We'll have to do it as a public meeting.
We're meeting next
We
week.
got the date moved out to the 15th, but we're trying to close in time before that, so.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll go tomorrow.
So we're not going to take any action on that tonight. The next item is, we have an agenda for the 31st, which is a week from tonight. We added a couple things to it. You have those, Dean? Here it is.
At the meeting with Rick Brigham,
So we're going to add at 6 o'clock, set the tax rate.
Right.
At 6:15, we're going to talk about the resume of the new lister and
set the pay rate.
set the pay rate. And then the other thing that Rick mentioned, we ought to talk about some kind of a summary of the fraud discussion we had at 4 o'clock today.
Regarding fraud risk.
Fraud risk. I have a question for the board. Can we do fraud risk, which is, you know, a new discussion, rather than open meeting law again? I mean, we've done that quite a bit, or do you want to do both? Is there anything new about the open meeting law?
The only thing is just to reiterate that they're supposed to post their agendas and minutes on the website, which,
There's a lot that's not.
yeah,
There's
I,
new people, I think.
Yeah,
we should-
there's
Okay.
new people, yeah, totally.
Okay, so we just added an item, meet and greet, fraud risk, open meeting law, budget process. And then the schedule for the budget's below.
which are 2 months earlier this year.
Okay, anything else? Everybody's good with that? Anything else before the board? Just want to have an executive session, but we'll make that the last item. Personnel issue. So is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'd like a 5-minute break.
Okay, and then following that, can we go into executive session?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. All in favor, aye? So that's the end of, we're going to executive session. No actions will be taken. We'll come out of the meeting and adjourn.